thank you for your wonderful gifts of life, health, wisdom, joy, and honor to serve this country and the Filipino people. All the glory we give back to you for keeping our country mantled in your loving protection and guidance. Our human frailties have caused you so much pain, and for this and all our shortcomings, we ask for your compassion with all humility and meekness. We offer you our prayers for mercy and kindness, trusting that we will remain clothed in your love and forgiveness. We pray in a special way for your peace to reign in war-torn countries of the world. May light and grace find its way through the strife, fear, and chaos. May those caught in between be shielded and delivered to refuge, and may they find faith, courage, and strength in those offering their time and energy to help bring them to safety. We pray for this chamber to be bestowed with divine grace and wisdom as we seek the ultimate good on those you have called us to serve. May we all be joined in hearts and spirits as we work in unity for progress, peace, and prosperity. May we be all channels through which your spirit will flow. May we all be instruments through which your divine plan will find completion. All this we earnestly seek in the mighty name of Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Do we have time? Secretary, please call the roll of members.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senator Angara, Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, the Senate President.
With 19 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader, I believe we have some special
Yes,
guests with
Mr.
us.
President, we have special guests here in the gallery today. We would like to acknowledge and welcome them. First is our dear friend, the distinguished gentleman from Imus, now the mayor of Imus, Cavite, and friend of, I think, every senator, Mr. President, Mayor A.A. Advincula, Mr. President.
Welcome to the Senate. Our distinguished colleague, he was with us in its commission on appointments as well.
Yes, Mr. President. Also with us, Mr. President, is the representative of BHW Party List, guest of this representation, Representative Angelica Natasha Co of BHW Party List.
Before you forget also, we also have with us the son of Mayor AA, which is the congressman.
Congressman Advincula, Mr.
Advincula is
President
with us
of Imus, is also here with us. Also here with us, the guest of Senator Nancy Binay, Vice Mayor Hegem Purigay of Lamitan City, Basilan. And also, Mr. President, your guests from Armscor Philippines, Mr. Martin Tuason, VP of Omnis Energy, Mr. Dog Quezada, CEO of Omnis Energy, Mr. Simon Hodson, Mr. Phil Aldridge of Envirotech Vehicles, and Mr. Marlon Bateman of Envirotech Vehicles.
Well, first of all, welcome to your Senate, ladies and gentlemen, and to my dear colleagues that you mentioned last. They are my special guests for the records of the Senate. Envirotech Vehicles, headed by Mr. Philip Aldridge and Marlon Bateman, have already invested in Clark with the electric vehicle production manufacturing plant. So they're putting up a very big amount of investments here in the Philippines. We thank them for their business and we welcome them here. And for Mr. Dog Quesada and Mr. Simon Hudson, they're also going to help us convert coal-fired power plants in the Philippines into hydrogen plants. So it will be cleaner energy, from dirty energy to clean energy. And they're all led by this gentleman from Armscor Group, Martin Tuason. Welcome to the Senate, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. Continue, Mr. President. I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 66th session, Monday, May 8, 2028, and consider the same as approved.
There being no objection, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary, please proceed with the reference of business.
Bills on first reading, Senate number 2083, promoting integrated urban agriculture in urban areas nationwide to address food security and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
1 second, I don't have a copy.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we had no copy with me. Referred to committees on agriculture, food, and agrarian reform and finance.
2084, institutionalizing a system of fund administration of cash donations or humanitarian aid from local or foreign donors and sponsors during disasters, calamities, crises, or emergencies, and for other purposes, Senator Villar M.
Referred to the Committee on Finance.
2085, establishing evacuation centers in every city and municipality and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
Referred to committees on national defense, security, public works, and finance.
2086, promoting the use of buy-in as a tool for cultural development of the Philippines, providing its promotion, protection, preservation, and conservation for other purposes, Senator Villar M.
The Committee on Culture and Arts.
2087, institutionalizing the tulong panghanap buhay sa ating disadvantaged displaced workers TUPAD program of the DOLE, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Labor and Employment and Finance.
2088, reforming the National Apprenticeship Program and providing standards for the training and employment of apprentices and regulatory standards for accreditation of apprenticeship programs, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Labor and Employment, Ways and Means.
2089, preserving the indigenous sports and games of the Philippines, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Culture and Arts and Sports.
2090, establishing the Philippine Entrepreneurs Academy and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education, Trade and Commerce, Ways and Means and Finance.
2091, extending the life of the Philippine Aerospace Development Corporation by another 50 years, amending for the purpose PD 286 series of 1973 as amended, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, Senator Villar M.
To the Committee on Government Corporations and Public Enterprises.
2092, creating dental service in every city or municipal health unit as part of the primary healthcare approach in the delivery of healthcare services, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance.
2093, institutionalizing the appointment of economic and investment promotion officers in local government units, amending for the purpose RA 7160, Senator Villar M.
To the Committee on Local Government, Civil Service, and Government Reorganization.
2094, strengthening local sports programs to develop young athletes, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Youth, Sports, and Finance.
2095, establishing a College of Medicine in the Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University South La Union campus, located in Agoo, province of La Union, to be known as the Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University South La Union Campus College of Medicine, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Marcos.
To the Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education, Ways and Means and Finance.
2096, establishing the Baguio City High School for the Arts and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Marcos.
Committees on Basic Education, Culture and Arts and Finance.
2097, declaring the whole month of July of every year as the Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Month in the entire country, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Trade, Commerce, Entrepreneurship, and Finance.
2098, requiring the teaching of digital literacy as a part of the curriculum of grade schools and high schools, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Tulfo.
Committees on Basic Education, Science, Technology, and Finance.
2099, providing for additional rights and benefits to kasambahays under RA 10361 and for other purposes, Senator Tulfo.
Committees on Labor, Employment, and Human Resource Development.
2100, prohibiting anti-game fixing and providing penalties, violations, Senator Tulfo.
To the Committees on Sports, Games, and Amusements.
2101, providing for a moratorium on student loan payment during disasters and other emergencies, Senator Tulfo.
To the Committees on Committee on Rules.
2102, providing for the establishment of registries of professionals and skilled workers in barangays and for other purposes, Senator Tulfo.
Committee on Labor and Employment, Human Resource Development, and Local Government.
2103, declaring the Cebu Safari and Adventure Park located in Corte Carmen, Cebu, a tourism destination, Senator Marcos.
To the Committee on Tourism.
2104, establishing a 50-bed satellite hospital of the Eastern Visayas Regional Medical Center in Catarman, Northern Samar, to be known as the Eastern Visayas Regional Medical Center, Catarman Satellite Hospital, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Marcos.
To the Committee on Rules.
2105, providing for the institutionalization of the conditional matching grant to provinces for road and bridge repair, rehabilitation and improvement, Senator Marcos.
Committees on Local Government, Public Works, and Finance.
2106, creating the Metro Bataan Development Authority, defining its powers and functions, providing funds therefore, Senator Tolentino.
Committees on Local Government, Government Corporations, and Finance.
Resolutions, proposed Senate Resolution 576, directing the appropriate Senate committee conduct an inquiry on the short, medium, and long-term solutions to end the power supply crisis in the province of Occidental Mindoro, Senator Gatchalian.
Referred to Committee on Energy.
577, resolution in aid of legislation directing the inquiry into the process of obtaining driver's licenses and registering motor vehicles in the Philippines, with an end view of streamlining and making the process accessible to the marginalized sector, addressing the issue of shortage of plastic cards, reducing the burden of compulsory third-party liability insurance, Senator Tulfo.
To the Committee on Public Services.
578, directing the Senate Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations to conduct an inquiry on the light rail vehicles procured by the DOTR made unusable due to water leaks, Senator Pimentel III.
The Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations.
579, urging the appropriate Senate committees to conduct an inquiry on the Panay Island power situation with the end in view of ensuring continuous supply of electricity to consumers, Senator Poe.
To the Committee on Energy.
580, calling for the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry on the avian influenza with the intent of determining the appropriate government intervention to prevent and control the outbreak of transboundary animal diseases in the country, contingent on the unabated importation of poultry products that will ultimately lead to adverse public health effects and demise of local poultry, Senator Tolentino.
To Committees on Health and Demography, Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform.
581, congratulating and commending the Philippine weightlifting team for capturing 7 gold, 4 silver, and 1 bronze medal at the 2023 International Weightlifting Federation World Youth Championships held in Durres, Albania on March 25 to April 1, 2023, Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
582, congratulating and commending the Philippine Ice Hockey team for bagging the gold medal at the 2023 International Ice Hockey Federation World Championships Division 4 held on March 23 to 26, 2023 in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
583, congratulating and commending the Philippine National Karate team for capturing 6 gold, 5 silver, 23 bronze medals at the 10th Southeast Asian Karate Federation Championships held in Manila, Philippines on March 13 to 19, 2023, Senator Lapid.
Committee on Rules.
584, urging the Executive Department to push for an amendment and strengthening of the Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States of America and other ancillary treaties and agreements in relation thereto. Senator Tolentino.
To the Committee on Foreign Relations.
585, directing the Senate Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations to conduct an inquiry on the delayed issuance of the National Identification Card, Senator Pimentel III.
Committee on Accountability, Public Officers, and Investigations.
586, directing the appropriate Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry on the alleged inappropriate issuance by the Philippine Ports Authority of AO 04-2021, prescribing the policy on the registration and monitoring of containers, which is being vehemently opposed by several business groups, Senator Pimentel III.
To the Committee on Public Services. Please proceed with the additional reference to business.
Additional reference of business messages from the House. Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 21 March 2023, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 7387, expanding the services of the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation and encouraging private sector participation in agricultural insurance. Further amending PD 1467, creating the PCIC as amended.
To the Committees on Government Corporations, Public Enterprises, Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform.
6772, granting the President of the Philippines the power to suspend and adjust the period of implementation of the scheduled increase of premium rates for direct contributors of the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, amending for the purpose RA 11223.
To the Committees on Health, Demography, and Finance.
4605, providing for the right of married women to retain their maiden surnames, amending for the purpose Article 370 of RA 386 as amended.
Committee on Women and Children, Family Relations.
7363, promoting entrepreneurship by establishing a sustainable financing program for micro and small enterprises through the Pondo sa Pagbabago at Pag-asenso program, appropriating funds therefore.
To Committees on Trade and Commerce, Economic Affairs, and Finance.
7370, creating a tripartite council to address unemployment, underemployment, and the job skills mismatch problem in the country, appropriating funds therefore.
Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education, Labor and Employment, and Finance.
7400, institutionalizing an enterprise-based education and training program to strengthen technical vocational education and training and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education, Labor and Employment, Ways and Means, and Finance.
7414, renaming the Literacy Coordinating Council to National Literacy Council, strengthening its powers and functions, expanding its membership structure and support mechanisms, appropriating funds therefore, repealing for the purpose RA 7165 as amended.
Committees on Basic Education, Finance.
7426, proclaiming the first Monday of August every year as Line Workers Appreciation Day.
Committee on Energy.
7525, providing for a reinvestment framework for real estate investment trust sponsors or promoters, amending sections 3, 8, and 9 of RA 9856.
Committees on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Economic Affairs.
7499.
Mr. Secretary, maybe you just read the numbers and we will just refer them after reading all the House Bill numbers.
7499, 3672, 7424, 7498, 7500, 7501, 7502, 7503, 7504.
These are all marine hatcheries in the different parts of the Philippines. Refer to the Committees on Food, Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, and Finance.
7577, creating an additional district engineering office in Zamboanga City. 1043, engineering office in the province of Negros Occidental. 7508, this engineering office in the second district of Southern Leyte.
Refer to Committees on Public Works and Finance.
7413, renaming the Agham Road and the BIR Road stretching from North Avenue, traversing through Quezon Avenue up to East Avenue, all located in Quezon City as Senator Miriam P. Defensor Santiago Avenue.
For the Committee on Public Works.
7324, establishing the Paniki Tarlac Eco Farm and appropriating funds therefore.
Committees on Agriculture, Food and Finance.
7361, establishing community forests in Digos and Sulop, Santa Cruz, Padada, Matanao, Malalag, Magsaysay, Kiblawan, Hagonoy, and Bansalan in Davao del Sur, appropriating funds therefore.
For the Committees on Environment, Natural Resources and Finance.
7528, declaring Kitty Calao Falls an ecotourism site. 7545, declaring San Andres, Romblon a tourism development area. 7556, declaring Timanguyog Falls an ecotourism site.
To the Committees on Tourism, Environment, and Finance.
7009, declaring February 14 of every year a special non-working holiday in Calamba, Misamis Occidental in commemoration of Araw ng Calamba.
For the Committee on Local Government.
7315, separating the Jose Abad Santos National High School, Tabayon Extension in Tabayon, Jose Abad Santos, Davao Occidental from the Jose Abad Santos National High School.
To the Committees on Basic Education and Finance.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 20 March 2023, it designated Representatives Romulo, De Venecia, Escudero, and Castro as conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreed Provisions of House Bill number 5110 and Senate number 1841.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 20 March 2023, designated Representatives Tupas, Alvarez, Bustos, Yu, Romualdo, Colada, and Paduano as conference to the Conference Committee on the Disagreed Provisions of House number 6517 and Senate number 1849.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 20 March 2023, designated Representatives Yung Galao, Salceda, Barba, Ortega V, Estrella Recto, and Aspires as conferees to the Conference Committee on House number 6336 and Senate number 1850.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 22 March 2023, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House number 6517 and Senate number 1849.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 22 March 2023, it ratified the Conference Committee report on House number 6336 and Senate number 1850.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 22 March 2023, it concurred with the Senate amendments to House number 4635.
To the Archives. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture and with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed the privileged speech and recognize Senator J.V. Ejercito, our Deputy Majority Leader, to deliver his speech.
Our distinguished Deputy Majority Leader, Senator J.V. Ejercito, is recognized.
Ginoong Pangulo, sa ating pong makasamahan sa bulwagang ito at sa iba pang naririto ngayon, isang mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat. Walang kalayaan kung wala ang pinaglabanan. Ito po ang laging bigkas ng bawat San Juanenyo tuwing sasapit ang ika-30 ng Agosto, ang tinaguriang araw ng pinaglabanan.
Support yan, support.
Sa kasaysayang araw ito, taong 1896, buong tapang na sinugod ni Nagat Andres Bonifacio at General Emilio Jacinto, 10 na kanilang mga kasamahang katipuneros ang imbakan ng tubig ng Maynila, ang El Deposito. Kasabay din nilusob ng ating mga bayani ang El Polvorin o imbakan ng mga armas at pulbura. Ang El Deposito at El Polvorin ay parehong matatagpuan sa San Juan del Monte. Ang pangyayaring ito ay tinatawag na labanan sa San Juan del Monte, ang unang pangmalawakang pakikibaka laban sa mga mananakop na Espanyol sa pagnanais na makamit ang ating kalayaan. Taong 2002, isang taon makalipas ang aking unang taon bilang punong bayan, sa bisa ng isang Municipal Ordinance number 34 at 35 ay naipatayo natin ang mabantayog ni Nagat Andres Bonifacio sa panulukan ng mga lansangan ng pinaglabanan at Valenzuela, at Emilio Jacinto sa panulukan ng pinaglabanan. Ang pagsasagawa ng mga proyektong ito ay bunsod ng pagnanais ng inyong likod na imulat at ipaalala sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga kabataan, ang napakalagang partisipasyon ng aming munting bayan ng San Juan sa ating pambansang kasaysayan at kalayaan. Marahil hindi batid ng ilan, ating mga kababayan na malaki ang naging bahagi ng bayan ng San Juan sa ating kasarinlan. Ito po ang aking naging lagi ipinagmamalaki at naging motibasyon upang maipalala ng ating kababayan ang mahalagang kontribusyon ng dalawang haligi ng hindi lamang ng katipunan, ngunit maging ang himagsika noong 1896. Sila po ay si Nagat Andres Bonifacio, ang ama ng katipunan, at General Emilio Jacinto, ang utak ng katipunan. Sinikap ng inyong lingkod na may patayo ang madabanang ito sa stratehikong mga lugar kung saan mas makikita ito ng mas marami nating mga kababayan. Ang pagpaparangal pong ito sa ating mga bayani ay hindi lamang para sa magsisilbing inspirasyon sa mga taga San Juan, kundi para na rin sa sino man na mapapadaan sa aming makasaysayang lungsod. Noong taong 2004, sa pagnanais natin na mas lalong makilala ang mga kabataan, ang mga bayaning katipunan, tayo po ay nakapagtulungan sa Nooy National Historical Institute upang maipatayo ang Museo ng Katipunan. Ito po ngayon ay matatagpuan sa Dabanan ng Pinaglabanan o Pinaglabanan Shrine. Ang Museo ng Katipunan ang magsisilbing tahanan ng mga mahalagang artifacts ng Katipunan at ng Revolusyon. Sa pamamagitan ng mga ito ay mas mauunawaan at mabibigyang pagpapahalaga ng mga kabataan ang kasaysayan sa labanan sa San Juan del Monte o Battle o Pinaglaban. Sa katotohanan lang, Ginoong Pangulo, ang ating kasamahan na si Senadora Robin Hood Padilla, ang kanya pong kasaysayang pelikula, Bonifacio, ay dito po iginawa ang narration sa aming Museo ng Katipunan. Pinangungunahan naman po ng aking ina na si Mayor Gia Gomez ng kanyang termino ang pagsasaayos ng Museo ng El Deposito at ang El Deposito Underground Reservoir. Ang El Deposito po ay hindi lamang imbakan ng tubig, kundi bukal at daluyan din ng kwento ng kabayanihan. Yan po ang mga litrato, Ginoong Pangulo, na pinahukay po yan at pwede na puntahan para makita po ang mga chamber at ngayon ay dinadayo ng marami nating mga mag-aaral. Ipinatayo naman po ang Pinaglabanan Shrine upang gunitain ang kabayanihan ng mga katipunerong nagbuwis ng buhay sa unang revolusyon. Sila po ay mga bayaning, mga walang pangalan, ngunit karapat-dapat na tumanggap ng katumbas na pagkilala ng tulad sa mga mas makilalang mga bayani. Ipinagmamalaki po natin na ang centerpiece ng dambana na tinatawag na spirit o pinaglabanan ay nilikha ng tanyag na eskultor na si Eduardo Castrillo. Napuno po ng pag-asa ang inyong lingkod na sa mga munting pagpapakilala sa mga bayani ng Katipunan ay manunumbalik ang interes ng ating mga kabataan sa pag-aaral ng kasaysayan. Sa pagpapatayo po natin ng madambana para sa ating mga bayani, layon po natin na alalahanin ang mga yumaong ngunit nais din natin paalalahanan tayong mga nabubuhay pa. May mga nagbuwis ng buhay, dugo at pawis para po makamtan ang ating pong kalayaan. Ang mga monumento ni Gat Andres Bonifacio at General Emilio Jacinto ay munti pong ambag ng inyong lingkod sa pagpapatibay ng pundasyon ng ating pong kasaysayan. Ngunit kamakailan lang, tila niyanig at biglang gumuho ang mga pundasyon ng ito ng aking sinikap na maitayo. Noong nakaraang linggo po ay nakakalungkot, Mr. President. Galing po ako sa misa sa St. John the Baptist Parish. Nung pauwi na po ako, madilim na po ang lugar. Sabi ko baka naman pundido lamang o hindi nabuksan ng ilaw. Laking gulat ko nung nadaanan ko ay gibana at wala na po si Gat Andres Bonifacio. Sabi nga ni Senador Angara, ang aking pagiging, si Senator Sani Angara, niligpit na nga po si Andres Bonifacio nung panahon na yon, ngayon, naligpit pa ang monumento niya. Kaya nakakalungkot, pati po si Emilio Jacinto ay nawala na rin po sa orihinal na kinatitirikan. Pati na rin ang monumento ng ating pambansang bayani na si Dr. Jose Rizal sa Plaza ng San Juan ay tinanggal. May mga nakapagsabi lamang po sa inyong lingkod na ang mga ito ay nilipat sa magkabilang sulok ng Pinaglabanan Shrine. Yan pong mga litratong nakikita nyo, ayan na po ang yung dati, yung before and after. No? Yan po ang Andres Bonifacio at ngayon po ay ganito na po. No? Banay po, bato-bato na lamang na iniwan. Tumindig po tayo ngayon upang maghanap ng mga kasagutan. Ano po kaya ang dahilan kung bakit ginambala ang mananahimik na bantayog ng ating mga bayani? Bakit po kaya sila inilipat sa mga lugar kung saan misto lang nakatago na sa ating mga kababayan? Nawala pong esensya at layunin ng mga bantayog na ito. Ang pagpapakilala ng kabayanihan at pagmamahal sa bayan. Ang pagpapatayo at pagpapagawa ng dalawang bantayog na ito ay pinondohan at ginastusan ng pamahalang bayan ng San Juan noong termino ng inyong likod bilang mayor. Noong 2020, saksagsagan ng pananalasa ng pandemya, naglabas ng resolusyon ang City Council ng San Juan na naglalayon na i-relocate ang mga monumento ni Gat Andres Bonifacio at Emilio Jacinto batay sa City Resolution No. 76, Series of 2020. Ang pamahalang lungsod ay humingi ng pondo mula kay dating Congressman Ronnie Zamora sa paglilipat ng mabantayog na nabanggit. Sa bisa ng City Ordinance No. 55, Series of 2021, pinagtibay ang pagpapalipat ng mga bantayog sa Pinaglabanan Shrine. Sa makatuwid, parehong buwis ng mamamayan ang ginamit sa pagpapatayo at pagpapalipat ng mabantayog ni Gat Andres Bonifacio at Emilio Jacinto. Sa panahon po na nasa proseso pa rin ng pagbabangon ng ating makababayan mula sa hagupit ng pandemya, sana po ay ibinuhos na lang sa lapi ng pamahalaan sa mas makabuluhang mga bagay kaysa pagbulabog sa mga nananahimik na monumento ng bayani. Para po sa kalaman ng lahat, ang mga bantayog na ito ay gawa ng yumao at kilalang Pilipinong eskultor na si Eduardo Castrillo. Kung halaga magiging sukatan, mas mataas na ang halaga ng kanyang mga obra kasama ng mga nabanggit na mabantayog ng pag-aari ng ating pong lungsod. Ang Pinaglabanan Shrine ay pinamamahalaan ng National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Ano po ang kasunduan sa pamamahala ng mabantayog sa paglilipat sa Pinaglabanan Shrine? Totoo nga ba ng NHCP ang nagmungkahi na ilipat ang sa loob ng shrine na kung saan hindi na ito makikita ng mga dumaraan? Ginong Pangulo, hindi po mapigilan na hindi tumayo sa bulwagang ito upang ibahagi ang aking pagkalungkot. Bilang isang tagahanga ng ating bayani si Gat Andres Bonifacio, lingid sa kaalaman ng ating mga kababayan, ang paghanga at pagdadakila kung ito ay ipinakukit ko na sa aking mga balat. Ang marka pong ito ay tulad ng batay ni Gat Andres Bonifacio, hindi lamang palamuti, kundi isang paalala na sa araw-araw ay paglingkuran ang ating sambayanan. Araw-araw po ay pinapaalalanan ko na mayroon tayong digmaan na dapat pagwigian. Ngunit hindi na po pakikidigma laban sa mga mananakop, kundi pakikidigma laban sa kahirapan at sa pagsasamantala. Lumalaban tayo para sa mas maayos na serbisyong pangkalusugan, disenteng hanapbuhay at isang maunlad na payapa na bansang Pilipinas. Kung kaya't lubos po ang aking pagkadismaya na makitang tila ipinagwawalang bahala ng kasalukuyang pamunuan ng lungsod ng San Juan ang ating kontribusyon na pagkilala sa kabayanihan ni Gat Andres Bonifacio at Emilio Cito at iba pang mga tipuneros. Ginoong Pangulo, iilan lamang talaga, sa totoo lang po, ang opisyal na talagang mahilig sa kasaysayan. Sabi nga nila, wala namang botong makukuha dito. Kung ito'y talagang nasa puso mo, ay talagang yung pagmamahal sa kasaysayan na napakahalaga dahil dito nagsisimula ang ating lakas bilang sambayanan. Ginoong Pangulo, nawa po ay isang issue ito ng kinasasangkutan ng bantay ni Gat Andres Bonifacio ay hindi na pagsimula ng pagkakahati. Bagkus ay magsisilbing mitsa ng malayang talakayan at sa huli ay mas manaig sa puso ng bawat isa ang pagmamahal sa bayan. Hindi po isang theme park yung pinaglabanan siya na kung saan basta-basta na lamang itatambak ang iba't ibang mga karakter. Inigay po natin sa mga bayani ang espasyo na narapat para sa kanila sa ating mga lungsod at bulwagan, ngunit higit sa lahat, hayaan natin silang manahan ng ating mga puso. Ang mga bantayog po ay landmarks, palatandaan ng isang mahalagang kaganapan. Ang mga landmarks po na ito ay symbols of pride para po gunitain ang kadakilaan at kabayanihan ng ating pong Gat Andres Bonifacio, ang ama ng katipunan at iba pang katipunero. Sa ibang bansa nga po ay pinahalaga nila ang kanilang mga landmarks. Sana po ay ganun din po tayo. Hindi lamang po ito simpleng mga bantayog o landmark, kundi maituturing din mga milestones at pagpapaunlad at pagpahalaga sa ating pong kasaysayan. Respeto at pagpapahalaga. Mahirap po ba itong ibigay? Huwag naman po sanang idamay ang kadakilaan ng ating mga bayani nang dahil lamang sa politika. Bilang pagtatapos, Ginoong Pangulo, sa ngalan ng mga Sanmanenyong tulad ko, dais po sana naming maliwanagan sa isyong ito sapagkat ang mamahalagang bantay na ito ay mula sa bayan at para sa bayan. Muli, walang kalayaan kung walang pinaglabanan. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. President, good afternoon. Magandang hapon po.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Ejercito.
Mr. President, at this
Distinguished
juncture, I move that we recognize the distinguished gentleman from Bicol, no other than Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Senator Padilla is recognized, a distinguished colleague, sir.
A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Sa pangalan po ng 79 na greatest name ng Panginoon Diyos. Ako po ay mahal na Ginoong Pangulo. Kasama po ako ng ating mahal na Senador J.B. Ejercito sa kalungkutan na ito sapagkat parehas po kaming katipunero. At yung pong pagiging katipunero, hindi po ito isang bagay na madali naming tanggapin kapag ang patungkol po kay Gat Andres Bonifacio na hanggang sa ngayon, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, ay hindi pa po nabibigyan ng hustisya. Katunayan po, bukas at ika-10 ng Mayo, iyan po ay kamatayan. Ang sinasabing kamatayan ni Andres Bonifacio. Ngunit, sa usapin po ng maraming tinatawag po nating debate, sinasabi nila noong ika-26 ng Abril talaga namatay. Ngayon po, sa ganap na ito na naman, sabi nga ng ating kapatid na Senador Angara, iniligpit na naman. Hindi na ba matatapos ang pagliligpit kay Andres Bonifacio? Talaga bang ganito po talaga ang mangyayari na sa ating alam ninyo, itong ating tinatamasa na kalayaan, itong pagkakaroon natin ngayon ng plenaryo itong pagkakaroon natin ng bandila, itong lahat ng ito ay utang natin sa Supremo Andres Bonifacio. Kaya nga po siya ang tinatawag nating ama ng revolusyon. At hanggang ngayon, nandoon pa rin po tayo nakapaloob sa revolusyon na yon dahil hindi lamang po tayo sa pagiging revolusyonaryo doon sa mga dayuhang mananakop, kung hindi patungkol ito sa kalayaan natin, sa kahirapan na hanggang sa ngayon, tayo po ay nakikibaka pa. Bakit po kaya sa mga ganitong bagay, hindi po natin iwasan na po sana natin na masyadong politika. Pinatay na nga po ang Supremo Andres Bonifacio nang dahil sa politika at lagpas na 100 taon na politika pa rin. Sana po ang atin pong hiling, ang atin pong panalangin, ang atin pong salmo diyan sa ating pong mga namumuno sa siyudad ng San Juan. Napakalaking simbolo ng kalayaan ang pinaglabanan. At wala pong pinakamagandang makita ng mga kabataan kung hindi itong mga estatwa na ito ay nasa kalsada. Makikita ng mga kabataan, makikita ng mga matatanda, makikita ng anumang kasarian na pagdaan nila, makikita nila ito araw-araw. Hindi doon sa usapin na pagkapupunta ka lang doon sa parke, saka mo makikita lang si Andres Bonifacio at si Emilio Jacinto. Alam ninyo, nung tinanggal ang mga bayani sa pera natin, medyo masakit na yon. Dahil yung panahon na yon, dapat araw-araw natin nakikita ang mga bayani natin sapagkat utang nating lahat ito sa kanila. At ito na naman tayo. Napunta na naman tayo. Tinatago na naman natin. Mga mahal kong kababayan, kung pagkaganito, na hindi na tayo marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan natin, at hindi na natin pa iintindihin ang sinabi ng ating mga bayani na katulad ni Jose Rizal na sinabi niya kapag ka hindi ka marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan mo, talaga maliligaw ka. Hanggat hindi po natin binibigay sa ating mga bayani ang nararapat na pagkilala, unang-una na sa kanilang mga estatwa na hindi natin dapat ito itago, kung hindi dapat nating ipagmalaki, ilagay sa mga kalsada, kung maaari lamang sa bawat kanto, ay nandyan ang ating mga bayani. Kaya po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, muli, ako po'y sinusundan ko ang salmo na ito ng ating mahal na kakampi na si Senator J.B. Ejercito at sana po ang buong kapulungan ay maging kasama po natin, hindi po para makipag-away, kung hindi para bigyan lamang ng pagkilala si Andres Bonifacio bilang ama ng revolusyon. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong.
Maraming salamat sa ating kasamaan.
Mr. President, our Senate Minority Leader is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, Senator Coco Pimentel.
Our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and our Majority Leader. First of all, I'd like to commend our colleague, Senator J.B. Ejercito, for bringing this to our attention. And then it's still fresh in my memory, Mr. President, that we just recently discussed and then passed the cultural mapping bill, di ba? Was sponsored by our Senate President pro tempore, Senator Ligarda. Okay, ano ba idea doon? Ang idea doon, meron tayong mga ari-arian or properties which have historical or cultural value. No issue on the shrine, the pinaglabanan area, that's really a historical area. Yan ang tanong, if there's a monument to symbolize or to represent a historical or cultural event, and is that or are those monuments not covered by the mechanisms under the existing laws where some sort of permission or clearance is necessary before these monuments can be touched at all, Mr. President. So I'd like to raise this issue. Yung
But your
pinaglabanan shrine, definitely klarong-klaro yung pagka meron ka sigurong kailangan gawin doon, you have to really ask a permission from either the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, the NCCA, etc. But how about the monuments of our heroes? Yan po ang
I remember, Your Honor, Minority Floor Leader, if I may, with the permission of the Deputy Majority Leader, during the 14th Congress, I believe, we were able to pass a measure which was sponsored by then Senator Edgardo Angara, the elder Angara, whose son is here now with us. And I can't recall the exact title, but it's the National Historical, it was the Culture and Arts. No, it created the National Culture, the commission. Do you remember the law, Your Honor? I'm sorry? Yes, please give the mic to Senator Angara. Yes, please.
There were two laws passed during the 14th Congress that might be applicable. That was previously the National Historical Institute was converted to the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, which is the present institution that exists today. And there was also the National Heritage Law.
That's it. That's what I can remember, the National Heritage Law. And the reason why I bring this up today, because it is part of that law. And the good gentleman, Senator Angara, I think was the sponsor in the House of Representatives. It was that law that would protect particular heritage sites from destruction. For example, those that with the National Historical Institute would put a marker as a historical infrastructure. It's the house of our national hero. Certain sites in the Philippines can no longer be damaged, destroyed,
the sites.
relocated.
If it's at least 50 years old, I think there has to be permission from the NHCP. And if it's the work of a national artist, I think also, or like a national artist for
Permission.
architecture, it needs permission from the NHCP. But there have been many cases where I think it was not observed, Mr. President, because I don't think there were any coercive measures under the bill or the law rather.
But if that's the case, if it only protects structures that are 50 years and above, which are considered heritage structures, and it was not built by, was it built by a national artist, distinguished gentleman from San Juan?
Yes, it was a sculpture by renowned Filipino sculptor, renowned Ed Castrillo,
Interesting.
Mr. President.
All three or all three?
All three of them. Actually, even the very first sculpture in the Pinaglabanan Shrine, the Spirit of 1896, which is really a very beautiful piece of art, was also made by Ed Castrillo, Mr.
Was
President.
this done during your term or the term of your Kuya Jinggoy?
The very first sculpture, the main sculpture depicting the Battle of San Juan del Monte was done during the time of my father when he was mayor of San Juan, 1972. Then the Andres Bonifacio and the Emilio Jacinto was done during my term, and the Jose Rizal was done by my mother. The reason behind that, Mr. President, is because San Juan is a historical town, and the battle started there, the first battle of the Katipunan. So we deemed it necessary to capitalize on this strength of the city of San Juan. That's why we put up these landmarks and also the Museo ng Katipunan as a dedication to the sacrifices of our Katipuneros, and particularly Andres Bonifacio. And also, if I may add, Jose Rizal has many monuments all over the country, and he has a shrine in Calamba. Emilio Aguinaldo also has many monuments, marami siyang bantayog, and he has a shrine in Kawit. Andres Bonifacio, ang ama ng Katipunan, marami siyang bantayog, monumento, pero wala po siyang shrine. That's why we established the Museo ng Katipunan, a repository of the artifacts and some other things pertaining to Katipunan. So that's the reason behind why we established the Museo ng Katipunan, and to put up these landmarks so that everybody who will pass to San Juan, lalo na yung ating mga kabataan, malala, ay, ito pala yung pinaglabanan. Nakikita nila si Andres Bonifacio, kumbaga, you will feel proud, no? Yung national pride natin, kumbaga mapuka naman, mabuhay naman, which I think is I have to be realistic na medyo nagkukulang na ngayon. So that's our own contribution on how we will be able to strengthen our patriotism by giving reverence to the sacrifices, yung dugo, pawis at buhay na sinakripisyo ng ating mga katipunero, Mr. President.
And to add lang, before I give it back to the minority floor leader, it's section 5 of the law. Section 5 of the law, cultural property considered important cultural property. And it is letter A, works ng manlilikha ng bayan, works by a national artist unless declared by the National Museum, archaeological and traditional ethnographic materials unless declared by the National Historical Institute, works of national heroes, marked structures dating 50 years old and above unless declared by the National Archives and archival material documents dating at least 50 years old. It's under section 5, Your Honor, of the law.
So thank you, Mr. President.
you.
That's why, Mr. President, since I anticipate that this will be referred to the proper committee and then we will have a committee hearing on this, I hope that we can establish the facts, kita natin yung facts, so that we can appreciate and see how the law is being implemented. Kasi alam ko, ganyan a certain level of protection is being given to these important historical or cultural properties, such that, there are some clearances or some permissions that you need to get before you touch them. So I'm looking forward to the hearing, Mr. President, because yun, makikita rin natin how the law is being implemented. Para makita po, in this particular case, i-apply po natin sa kasong po ito. Well,
And also, if I may add, with the judges are minority. In other countries, no, we've been around, especially in Europe and in other areas, they really give so much importance in history, the landmarks, and the events that led to their struggle, that led to their progress as a nation. No, nakakaingit, di ba? Pag umiikot tayo, talagang nakakamangha pag nakita ninyo yung mga landmarks nila. Ito po, kung ninyo may kita, yung present position right now ng mga monumente, halos parang camouflage na siya, hindi mo na makita. Para na rin siyang isa na rin sa mga kahoy. Kaya nga nung bumaba po ako, kinunan ko, halos talagang kailangan mong puntahan para mo makita. Dati po, very prominent yan. Lahat ng dadaan ng pinaglabanan at night, well lit, you will feel proud, no? Tulad na lang, halimbawa po, sa Turkey, pag pumunta kayo, bawat bahay, meron silang Turkish flag. At least itong mga ganito sana, I hope as our symbol of pride, as a nation, I hope we can preserve it. Tama po si Minority Leader, if we can look at, revisit the law on how it is protecting our national treasures and our national pride.
protecting or not protecting.
Yun na nga po.
Kaya nga, that's why, kaya meron tayong kailangan medyo we will establish the facts at ano po ang nangyari po rito. And then just for the information of our colleagues, yung nawalang national heroes natin sa ating pera raised by Senator Robin Hood Padilla, nakapag-file po ako ng resolution diyan at para i-hearing po natin. Na-hearing naman once ng ating Committee on Banks, hindi lang kasi national heroes ang nawala po ron sa new 1,000 peso bill po natin, nawala rin po doon yung abaca content actually. Kasi naging instead of cotton and abaca based banknote, naging plastic or polymer note na po yun. And the Philippines is a renowned producer and source of abaca. So, dalawa-dalawa po ang sapul doon sa change in design made by the BSP. Yet to be fair, but this still needs to be validated. I have encountered a press release from the BSP that particular note has also earned some commendations or praises. So we have to look into this. But the final judge on the practicality of the change in the design and in the usefulness of the new design would really come from the people who are supposed to be the ones who will be using the new banknotes, Mr. President. So
You know, I
This is-
supported you there.
yes, I know.
Minority
This is
Leader.
another issue, Mr. President. I was just reminded because Senator
Yes.
Padilla complained just right now about the omission or the deletion of the images of our national heroes from the 1,000 peso
The bank.
polymer banknote, Mr. President. So yun po yun. So I'm looking forward, Mr. President, to the hearing on this particular subject matter raised by our colleague. And I would like to congratulate him for bringing this to our attention. Akala natin local matter lang, pero hindi kasi there are these laws cited by our Senate President. Tsaka we actually amended that law just recently, and I think soon the BICAM report will reach the plenary again, Mr. President. So maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you, our Minority Leader. And I think he was one of our guests in the Pinaglabanan. That's why he's familiar with our museo. And also, Mr. President, if I may add, this may be like a local matter, but I think this is of national significance because Pinaglabanan or the Battle of San Juan del Monte played a major role in our history. Kaya nga yung ating pong pag-preserve ng Pinaglabanan Shrine, which we deem as a sacred ground because the first battle happened there, and the restoration of El Deposito, the erection of these monuments to give honor to our heroes, no? Sabi ko nga, dugot, pawis at buhay ang kanilang sinakripisyo para makamtan natin kalayaan. So I'm hoping that this, as mentioned by the Minority Leader, the protection or non-protection, the law is very important, no, sa ating mga pieces of artifacts and pieces of national pride. So, yun po, I'm a lover of history and I think it's very important, essential in our strengthening and maturity as a nation, giving our importance to where it started, no? Dapat pahalagaan po natin ang kabayanihan at sakripisyo ng ang ating mabayani.
Yes, for the record, it was the first major battle that we had to start the revolution against Spain. Just to get everybody's knowledge and ideas on track. So that's why it is very important that we honor that particular part of time in history. Senator Robin Padilla is recognized.
Ginoong Pangulo, sa permiso po ng ating mahal na Senador JV Ejercito, gusto ko lamang pong sundan po yung sinabi ninyo, Ginoong Pangulo. Totoo po yan. Alam niyo po, total, bukas naman po ay ating ipagdiriwang ang isang kamatayan, sinasabi nilang kamatayan ng Supremo Andres Bonifacio. Gusto ko lamang pong sundan, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, yung pong unang salbo ng labanan diyan sa pinaglabanan, diyan po natin maituturing nagbigay ng buhay ang mga tunay na revolusyonaryong Pilipino. Sapagkat yung sa ibang mga lugar po, yung mga revolusyonaryo po diyan ay mga politiko. Ito pong nagbigay ng buhay diyan sa pinaglabanan, yan po yung tinatawag nating talagang mahihirap nating mga kababayan. Yung mga ibang nasa lugar po, yan po yung mga tinawag natin na mga hunyango, yung mga nagbaliktaran. Mga dating nagseserbisyo sa Espanya na sumama sa katipunan. Yung pong nagbigay ng buhay diyan sa pinaglabanan, sila po yung mga tunay na mga revolusyonaryo at diyan po may pinakamaraming namatay diyan sa pinaglabanan. At pagkatapos po diyan din may pinakamaraming binaril pagkatapos ng labanan. Kaya yan pong pinag-uusapan natin na lugar, napakamakasaysayan. Kung po pwede lang po talagang putaktihin yan ng statwa, bawat kanto, yung pinaglabanan na yan, bawat kalsada, ay dapat po sigurong gawin. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Salamat din, Senator Robin Hood. In fact, Mr. President, sabi ko, napanood ko yung yung pelikulang Bonifacio na kung saan gawanap ang ating kasamahan. At talagang natuwa ako, I really felt a sense of pride na pinili niya po ang Museo ng Katipunan. At doon po ginawa ang narration ng buong pangyayari ng revolusyon. Kaya maraming salamat sa ating kasamahan, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, ang akin po pareho po kong nakabonipacio. Kaya talagang siguro pareho kaming nagdurugo ang puso na makita ng nangyari ngayon dito sa mga monumento ni God Andres Bonifacio.
Maraming salamat. Majority Leader, we'd like to recognize Senator Francis Tolentino of also historic province of Cavite, the site of many battles against Spain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Just a manifestation. I join our dear colleagues, the Deputy Majority Leader, as well as Senator Robin Hood Padilla, as well as Senator Angara, in commiserating as to the plight of God Andres Bonifacio. I do believe, Your Honor, that there is a need to strengthen the Heritage Act. And for the information of this body, Your Honor, it's not just in Pinaglabanan, but in Naik, Cavite as well, Mr. President. Our biggest high school, public high school in Naik, Cavite, houses a small room which served as the Bartolina of God Andres Bonifacio. Meron pa ho doon, Mr. President, na estatwa na nakatanikala. Napagkamalan ko po yung restroom nung binuksan ko po, ay nakahiga po doon si Andres Bonifacio. Akala ko po ay restroom, yung pala, doon talaga pinahirapan si Andres Bonifacio nung siya ay nakapiit sa Cavite. But I recall, Mr. President, and I would like this to be part of the conversation. During my younger days as MMDA, while the Skyway was being built, Mr. President, there was a plan of the DPWH to have several big posts to serve as the post of the Skyway 3 in an area near Philippine Columbian, Mr. President. This is a rotonda, Philippine Columbian in Paco. I opposed that, Mr. President. The Secretary of Public Works then was Secretary Babe Singson. I opposed that, Mr. President, precisely because it would lead to the relocation of a statue likewise, not a Filipino but a Japanese. The name is Mr. Takayama, who is now a beatified Japanese Filipino saint who served in Paco District in Manila during the days when the Christianity was banned in Japan, Mr. President. Napigilan po natin yun, Mr. President. Hindi nalipat yung estatwa. Yung estatwa po nakasamuray, natulungan po natin yung dayuhang Hapon na hindi maalis. Kaya ko po sinasabi to, kung natulungan natin yung isang Hapon na hindi maalis sa Paco, yung rotonda po sa Paco, makikita nyo po yan sa may Philippine Columbian kasi doon nag-aalay maging ang mga prime ministers ng Japan ng Bulaklak, ay siguro po dapat sariwain din natin at gunitain ang alaala ni Gat Andres Bonifacio at kung hinihiling ng ating colleague na maibalik ang estatwa sa orihinal na posisyon, palagay ko po, Mr. President, it can, it should, it must be done to restore the glory, honor, and dignity of Gat Andres Bonifacio. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Maraming salamat. Thank you very
Maraming
much,
salamat.
Senator Tolentino.
Mr. President, Senator Pia Cayetano is seeking the floor. I move that she be recognized, Mr.
Our
President.
distinguished colleague from the city of Taguig and Teros is recognized, Senator Pia Cayetano.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the sponsor. With this kind permission, may I share some of my insights and get his honor's thoughts on it as well. Thank you. Mr. President, I thank his honor for bringing this matter to our attention. This is a very important topic because since the 16th Congress, so that's maybe 8 years ago, the Senate has had similar debates, specifically because of the Rizal Monument, which was the subject of a controversy when a building was built. Actually, not very near it. I can't recall if it was a kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers away. But Her Honor, Senator Angara, Senator Loren, who is in deep conversation with Senator Angara, brought this up during her sponsorship of her bill, just around March, wherein her bill included the sightlines. Unfortunately, this was not included, no, in the final version of the bill. But I mentioned this because time and again these issues come up. In this particular case, am I correct, Senator JV, that one issue here is because this is a marker that was created less than 50 years ago, it does not automatically fall under the jurisdiction of NHCP. Is that correct?
Well, probably,
Or
yes,
NCCA
you're
pala?
correct.
NCCA and
Yes, you're correct.
NHCP. Okay. So I asked that question because then what we need to ask ourselves is what is the authority of the local government versus the national agencies in determining the lifetime of these monuments, di ba? I think it's a valid question for us to ask because obviously the LGUs or whoever initiated it, it could actually be private property, hindi ho ba, Mr. Sponsor? It could be private property, no? So I'm generalizing my question that whether it is a LGU that initiated it, a private citizen, maraming mga private organizations, di ba, who would initiate similar things. How do you protect them within the first 50 years, right? I think that's a valid question for us to ask. And then, let's assume the obvious, well, maybe not obvious, but let's assume good faith, the clear intention to honor the memory of a respected person, if not nationally, locally, di ba? Pwede rin naman local hero yon. Ano nga ba yung guidelines nun, di ba? Baka talagang there is not enough clarity. And we do know, as a developing country, there really will be a lot of construction, there will really be a lot of redesigning. So we will keep having these kind of discussions. So my point simply is, Your Honors, is that I commend the gentleman for bringing this to our attention because this is just an example of many similar incidents that will yet to come. Is that not correct, Your Honor?
Yes, that is correct. And unfortunately, sometimes the historical artifacts and significant pieces of history sometimes has to give way to progress or whatever, for whatever purpose. But I would say, Your Honor, Mr. President, that these are priceless, I would say. I would
Yes.
consider them as priceless because these are sources of pride and our strength as a nation. So, as mentioned by the Deputy Minority Leader, we have to revisit the laws that will really protect or that are not protecting these artifacts. From what I gathered, Your Honor, Mr. President, is that the mayor of San Juan claims that it has the NHCP's blessing to relocate all of these monuments inside the Pinaglabanan Shrine.
It has the, who
May-
gave the blessing?
May blessing daw po ng NHCP, no, to relocate all of these monuments inside the shrine.
Oo.
And that I would want to find that also from NHCP. Pero
Accurate.
forgive me for using the word, pero parang napakatanga naman nila kung papayagan nila ito. These are landmarks. And if I would like to show you, yung mga pinalit po doon, siguro kung makita sa slide, yung pinalit po kay Rizal, it's a sculpture na hindi ko alam kung ahas o uod. Pinagpalit po doon sa ating national hero. Ayan po, oh. Yan po, oh. Yan ang ipinalit. Tinanggal po si Jose Rizal. Pinalit po itong hindi ko maintindihan kung ano po ito.
Your Honor, I saw that when you were showing it earlier, and I'm glad you brought it again because I missed the explanation that ipinalit yon. So hindi pala siya kailangan mag-giveaway sa choice lang nilang palitan. So iba pa ho yung reason na yon that we need to really look into kasi talagang pinalitan lang.
And Your Honor, the location of these monuments are not in any way
Obstructive.
obstructing traffic or for future expansion.
Oo.
Talagang nakatago po siya. Yan po yung yan po yung
Oo.
exact location. And Your Honor, Mr. President, if you do go to, halimbawa, dadaan po kayo ng Cavite, no? Pag nadaanan nyo po yung shrine po ni Aguinaldo, you feel proud eh. Parang wow, dito nangyari
Of
yung
course. Of course.
pagtatag ng revolusyon, no? Doon unang yung ating watawat ay doon unang iwinasiwas. Pag dumaan naman kayong Kalamba, madaanan nyo yung bahay po ni Jose Rizal, parang nabubuhay yung inyong pag-nasyonalismo. So yun po sana, that was our intention in putting up this Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, and even the Museo ng Katipunan along Pinaglabanan because, Your Honor, this is how significant the Battle of San Juan del Monte was in our quest for freedom. No, yan ganun po ka-importante. So that was the intent. And as you can see, Your Honor, walang-wala po yan sa road widening. It's not obstructing anything. So papalitan po siya ng mga sculpture. Hindi ko lang alam kung ano po isusunod dun sa isang mukhang ahas o uod. So, yan po. That's the sad part.
So there are actually two landmarks or two sculptures that are subject of this privileged speech, Your
Actually,
Honor.
3.
May isa pa.
May isa pa.
Okay. Can we flash it also?
Rizal, Jacinto, and Bonifacio.
Okay.
Because these are well, of course, Andres Bonifacio is the father of the revolution. Si Emilio Jacinto yung utak, tapos si Jose Rizal was their inspiration. Kaya po, sila po yung nilagay namin in strategic areas along Pinaglabanan and in San Juan.
Okay, thank you so much, Your Honor, for taking the time to show it to this representation again. I'd just like to read into the record para we can process this and determine if at the proper time after the hearing there is reason to amend the bill. Amend the existing law is what I mean. So under section 5 of RA 10066, which is the act known as the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009, which Senator Angara referred to earlier. Section 5 states that for purpose of protecting a cultural property against exportation, modification, or demolition, the following work shall be considered important cultural properties unless declared otherwise by the pertinent cultural agency. Again, Your Honor, I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you state whether there has been a declaration of this as cultural property, important cultural property? Does His Honor know?
No, from what I know is the Museo ng Katipunan is already under the National Historical Commission, the Philippines. So I would suppose that by now they should have. I lost contact already because I was mayor 10 years ago, 13 years ago. But National Historical Commission should have declared these monuments as well as pieces, vital pieces of history.
Okay. So, but for the record, these properties referred to are work by a Manilikan ng Bayan, work by a national artist, and nabanggit niyo po, no, na national artist ang gumawa ng isa o dalawa nito o lahat?
I think all of them were done by Ed Castillo,
Okay.
known as sculptor.
Okay. And then archaeological and traditional ethnographic materials, work of national heroes, marked structures dating at least 50 years old, and archival materials dating at least 50 years old. Anyway, I mentioned that, Your Honor, because it gives us the opportunity to revisit this law and to see what more we can do for protection. We regret, and I join His Honor in expressing our dismay and our disappointment na yung monuments na ganito na napaka-importante, hindi lang para sa mga taga San Juan pero sa buong Pilipinas ay basta na lang nawala, and hindi ko rin maintindihan, no, na ba't napalitan ng ahas, na mukhang ahas. Pero in terms of moving forward, and katulad ho ng laban ko dun sa Rizal Monument, ang hirap po kong tanggapin at hindi ko pa rin tanggap na basta na lang mag-move forward, di ba? There should be some accountability para sa mga ginagawang ganito, and that is why we join His Honor in expecting that we will hear explanations during the hearing. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Pia. Thank you very much for also for supporting this.
Yeah, Mr. President, our Senate President Pro Tempore, Senator Lauren Legarde is seeking the floor. I move that she be recognized. Mr. President. Thank you.
Please not. Thank you. First of all, Mr. President, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of the good congressman from Metro Manila, from San Juan and the Philippines in bringing to our attention somehow violations of existing laws or the need to amend or revise or update existing laws. I was monitoring the conversations and discussions earlier. Perhaps the good sponsor can mention whether it was already answered before this, but what struck me was the statement that he made that it was the NHCP that actually allowed, is it the movement of historical structures, of structures that are of cultural significance? Is that accurate, Mr. President? Is this an NHCP, the National Historical Council of the Philippines, National Historical Commission of the Philippines project in the city of San Juan? And if it is their project, it therefore has been funded under the General Appropriations Act.
The Pinaglabanan Shrine, Your Honor, Mr. President, is under the supervision of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, the whole complex. And the mayor said that it has the movement of these monuments, the relocation inside the Pinaglabanan Shrine is with the blessing of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines director. So I would also want to ask what the reason behind, no? Because if Your Honor, if you could see, I'm sure you were, I think you were already a guest here one time.
Yes, June 12.
This is very, very prominent, no? That's the centerpiece of the whole shrine. It's really a very beautiful sculpture na talagang prominente. When you look at it, you will really feel proud because it's a shrine, and at the end, and as a centerpiece is the spirit of 1896 or the Battle of San Juan del Monte. And now that the other pieces of the other monuments were now relocated also inside. So as to the rationale, really, I do not understand because from what I know, dapat po isa lang yung centerpiece so that you can really give full attention. So, and also if you, as flashed earlier, you can hardly see anymore the other monuments, no? Na parang naka-camouflage na po siya. And with the trees, yan po, you cannot see anymore the monuments that used to be very prominent. Every time you pass, at least you feel a sense of pride as a Filipino and given heritage, seeing all of these heroes in along the street. Mr. President, Your Honor.
The relocation of the monuments of Bonifacio, Jacinto, and many others, which came from the Pinaglabanan Shrine, which are all together. Yes, is a project of the NHCP.
Well,
And the LGU, is that
the
it, Mr.
LGU,
President?
according to the LGU, is that the relocation is their project, but with the blessing of the NHCP for it to be relocated inside the shrine, because the Pinaglabanan Shrine, being the as mentioned, is a sacred ground, the site of the battle, has to have any movement or improvements on the shrine has to have the blessing or the approval of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines.
Yes, may I just be clarified on the designation of the Pinaglabanan Shrine under the NHCP? What is it called? What was the plaque that was installed there? Is it a National Historical Treasure?
I would say so, Your Honor, Mr.
National
President,
Historic
because
Site? What is
as
it?
mentioned,
Yes.
the El Deposito is located there. It played a vital role in in the revolution. The El Polvorin is nearby, and that ground, I would say, is sacred because the actual battle, took place, no, in that area.
Perhaps this is part of cultural mapping, and I
That is
would be
correct.
happy to help culturally map all the designated areas around the country designated under the NHCP, which means it has historical significance. All others designated by the National Museum, which means it has cultural significance, and all others designated as well by the National Commission on Culture and the Arts, which means it has cultural significance. And we also included in the cultural mapping bill, which hopefully will be passed on BICAM here this May, which is Heritage Month, the inclusion of biodiversity areas. But back to this, I would like to help the good sponsor from San Juan to first perhaps establish the metes and bounds of the coverage of the Pinaglabanan Shrine so that we would know what it would mean. Meaning, not just to the constituents and the people of the city of San Juan, but if it is marked as such as a historical landmark, then that is our national heritage and national part of our national patrimony. So even the non-San Juan residents and any movement of such monuments or shrine, of course, would need the concurrence of the agency, which declared it as such, and perhaps there may be rationale or meaning to preserve it, perhaps. I'm just trying to reason out to be fair to everyone concerned. So first, we establish what is it that was been declared? Is it National Historical Landmark? And with historical significance, when, what are the metes and bounds? And there are rules for any movement of any monument under the area that has been declared. What are the necessary permits and paperwork and permits needed to move it? And was this complied with? And so that this can be an example of every historical landmark that has been established by agencies of government. And I also saw, Mr. President, a photo of the Rizal Monument, which has been moved as well. And that structure,
Replaced with this,
yes,
Your Honor.
is that part of the Pinaglabanan Shrine?
Now that is along in Domingo. This in the Plaza ng
Yes.
San Juan.
Yes.
In front of. That's not. That's a few.
But still, it was
Meters.
a Castrillo
Yes.
Rizal Monument. And what is the Rizal Monument route now, Mr. President?
Come again.
Where is the Rizal Monument?
It's also inside the shrine, within the shrine
It
area.
was transposed.
It was also
Ah.
transferred.
May
and
I know who
located.
is the artist for the abstract sculpture?
I have no idea, Your Honor, but it doesn't look good. And I
Okay.
don't know what the significance is
Okay.
to our
I-
history.
I am certain that every piece has a meaning. So perhaps even if it may not be part of the Pinaglabanan Shrine, because it is a Castrillo who may not be a national artist, but he is a respected and well-known sculptor whom I knew, there must be some rules when we transpose or change location, especially because it was a Rizal monument. And perhaps we would want to know what is that sculpture that replaced the Rizal monument in M. Domingo. So the efforts of the good sponsor, Mr. President, in bringing to light not destruction, not demolition, which has happened so many times in different parts of the country, but even transposition, change of location, this holds meaning and purpose, and everything must be explained because even just demarcating an area or declaring an area as a cultural treasure by the NM, National Museum, a historical site by the Historical Commission. Ang haba ng proseso. Hindi araw, hindi linggo, hindi buwan, taunan po yan. Para ilipat ng maski ilang steps lang ay may purpose yan. So, perhaps you would like to have it referred to the Committee on Culture and the Arts. Yes, so that we could see, so that this could be an example of how government agencies must not just declare and neglect or declare, build, and abandon, but the oversight function of the National Museum, of the National Historical Commission, of the NCCA. Thank you. I sit on the board now. Thank you to our Chairman of Culture, of Education, who had so kindly agreed to the creation of the Committee on Culture and the Arts. And so this will be long after our terms, long after our tenure as senator, so that there could be clear guidelines on not just the listing, but also the maintenance and possible change of location if warranted. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. This is probably going on in many other cities, municipalities, provinces. Perhaps if they don't have representation in the Senate, their congressman may bring it to attention, maybe not. And so this is a good example of how we must understand to value heritage, to give import to history, and to understand what is the process in respecting it, or if it needs to be transferred or changed, what is the process, and we must understand the rationale without casting or passing judgment on what the LGU or the NHCP did. But definitely that sculpture in M. Domingo, I'm not sure who's the artist. I don't want to make a comment, but the Castillo Rizal monument, for me, visually looked better. And I have my own memories of standing before then Mayor Gia Gomez as a guest of honor on June 12, 10 years ago, I believe. So having said that, I thank the good sponsor, the good gentleman from San Juan City and the Philippines for giving value and a voice to heritage, especially this month of May, which is Heritage Month. Thank you.
Thank you, our Senate President Pro Tempore. As I mentioned, not a lot of officials really are a lover of history, and I know that you are one of them, and I thank you very much for the support and for the continuous advocacy on the preservation of our heritage and history.
Before I recognize our distinguished Deputy Minority Floor Leader, I just want to say, while listening to Senator Lauren Legarda, it is like watching an episode of Dayaw. Dayaw, which comes out every evening in ANC, Channel 27. I watch it because every time I watch the news at 10:30, at 10 o'clock, sorry, midnight, when I watch The World Tonight, I watch your show Dayaw.
Our
Right
knowledge,
after.
our pride. Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride.
Correct. That's correct, Your Honors.
And for the
Uh,
next episode, Mr. President,
We will recognize our
yes,
distinguished
Mr.
colleague,
President, I move
Pres-
that we recognize our
Senate
Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Senator Risa is recognized.
Salamat kaayo, Mr. President. Sa good gentleman from San Juan, kung maaari po, tatlong mabibilis na punto lang, in a way, by follow-up or taking off from where the interpellation of the Senate President Pro Tempore left off.
Yes, I did.
Salamat po.
Certainly.
Una po, nakatala na the Pinaglabanan Shrine was declared as a national shrine by virtue of Presidential Decree number 260 on August 1, 1973. Kaya yun lang yung unang quick point ko, good gentleman, Mr. President, that the sense of the good gentleman of the not just local but national value of this shrine is validated, is documented by historical record, good gentleman, Mr.
Yes,
President.
thank you very much for bringing that up, Senator Risa. You are correct, no? That the Pinaglabanan Shrine is indeed was indeed declared as a national shrine, and that's 1973. In fact, yung pong pagtayo nung bantayog po ron ay I think parehong taon, no, yung paglagay ng mismong dambana. I think when it was declared as a national shrine, that was also the time that it was erected.
Salamat, good gentleman, Mr. President. And then pangalawang punto, kung kaya siguro, yung pinaglabanan shrine, binabanggit talaga ng mga documents ng National Historical Commission of the Philippines. For example, ito pong dokumento nilang entitled Guidelines on Monuments Honoring National Heroes, Illustrious Filipinos, and Other Personages. Na yung section or number 10 nun on relocation says national monuments cannot be, of course, pwedeng itanong at ito rin yung isang punto ni Senator Legarda kanina, is the Pinaglabanan Shrine, dineclared na national shrine, is it akin to a national monument? Ang hula ko po ay maaring sabihin ganun na nga kasi tinatalakay siya ng NHCP in its articles on monuments. Kung tama po yung hula ko, nakalagay dito, teka, balik ako sa number 10 on relocation. National monuments cannot be relocated without prior written permission of the chairman of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. So, gaya ng pinag-uusapan ng good gentleman at ng Senate President pro tempore kanina, there is really a process that was prescribed. And well within his rights yung good gentleman na itanong kung nasunod ba itong prosesong ito na yung chair ng NHCP ay pumayag sa relocation prior the relocation and in writing. And then pangatlong huling punto, good gentleman, Mr. President, yung subject po ng privilege speech ng good gentleman, niyayakap na yung isang batas ng ating bansa at mukhang subject din ng isang international na charter. May Article 7 of the International Charter for the Conservation and Restoration of Monuments and Sites, otherwise known as the Venice Charter. Na pati po yung Venice Charter, nagbibigay ng rules. Una, pagpapahalaga. Pangalawa, rules kung ililipat man ang kabuuan ng isang monumento o kahit parte nun. So, maraming salamat sa good gentleman, Mr. President, for raising this important point. At sigurado ko tayo pong lahat dito sa Senado ay interesadong sundan ang magiging proseso at resulta niyan in hearing. Salamat po. Salamat
Thank you,
tayo, Mr.
Senator
President.
Risa. Just to quickly, no, yung pong point yun, yung second question, whether it was the process was followed according to the LGU, it has the blessings of the NHCP, no, yung pong pag-relocate. That's why I'm really interested, given the opportunity, on what went into the mind of the chair of the NHCP on why they allowed this project of relocating these landmarks which are outside to be placed inside the Pinaglabanan Shrine. So we would want some answers, and thank you also for bringing this up, that it may seem very local, but indeed Pinaglabanan is a national shrine and it's of national significance. And also, I'm glad also that you mentioned that there's an international law that also seeks to protect all of these historical facts or structures of national significance. So this is the issue that I really want to raise on. We really have to protect as our heritage and our pride and these artifacts. You know.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator JV. Mr. President, this juncture, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senator JV Ejercito and all the interpellations and manifestations thereon to the Committee on Culture and the Arts. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the motion, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move for a minute Senate minute suspension, Mr. President.
There be no objection to the motion. Session suspended for 1 Senate minute.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2035 under Committee Report number 63. This is the Trabaho para sa Bayan Act. So move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, resumption of consideration of Senate Bill number 2035 under Committee Report number 63 is now in order.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that we have sponsored the bill, and I now move that we open the period of interpellation and recognize this representation to sponsor and to interpellate no less than our seatmate Senator Sani Angara from the province of Aurora.
Hearing no objection, period of interpellation is now in order. Our Majority Leader is recognized, as well as our Committee on Finance Chair, Senator Sani Angara.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are ready to sponsor and defend the said measure, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished Majority Leader, Mr. President, would the gentleman yield to a friendly interpellation from this representation?
Gladly, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, especially from our seatmate, idol, basketball partner, Senator Sani Angara. Thank you.
I assure this to be short because we both don't want to stand for a long time, Mr. President. Mr. President, I was there when the President assigned you to take charge of this strategy. One LEDAC, I think, late in the fourth quarter of last year, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. President, and you made it your priority. You had an extensive hearings on this with several resource persons. But could you tell us, and just for the record, why is there a need to create a Trabaho para sa Lahat plan, given that we have a DOLE, we have a TESDA who have their own departmental plans, and we have the medium-term development plan, Philippine Development Plan, among others. So what sets this plan apart from those aforementioned plans, Mr. President?
That's a very good and I think very important question, Mr. President, because the gentleman from Aurora himself would know that if a question would be posed to any government agencies as to who is in charge of job generation, who is in charge of job creation, of recovering from the pandemic, for instance, on how we'll be able to get back on the right track, no one would actually take the cudgels, Mr. President. For example, DOLE would say, we are here to facilitate employment. And TESDA would say, we are here to give training programs. And DTI would say, we are here to make sure that there is a friendly business environment so that we'll be able to attract investors. But no one, Mr. President, no one would actually say, this is our job to ensure that we would have a framework, a master plan as to how we're going to go about with the industries at hand, with the emerging industries, Mr. President, and so that we'll be able to have a master plan, not just a PDP, wherein, Mr. President, you only have 6 years. I remember during the hearing, I can see here Senator Nancy Binay, who is present here with us. Senator Nancy even mentioned, how come every time there's a new president, a new administration, there's another kind of program, and the employment program changes, the employment strategy changes, etc. And you look at the 6 years, only the 6 years of administration's Philippine Development Plan towards achieving, buti nga ho, ngayon, meron pa tayong ambition natin na 2040. So again, Mr. President, there is no concrete and coherent document that outlines the country's plans with regard to labor and employment in relation to the development of the industry and the skills in the workforce. In fact, Mr. President, yung labor and employment plans are often separate and distinct from skills development plan. Ang dami-dami po, no? Nandyan yung DTI, meron po silang skills development framework. Ang TESDA po, meron din na National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan. Alam na alam po yan ni Senator Angara dahil siya yung chairman ng finance, siya din po dati yung nagdi-defend ng budget ng TESDA. And iba-iba pong mga industry plans, industry development plans. Meron po sa manufacturing, meron po sa agribusiness, meron po sa construction. Thus, makikita po natin, Ginoong Pangulo, it appears to be no coherence among these plans with each department working independently rather than collaboratively with other departments. In fact, Mr. President, this particular measure is in line with the right sizing innovation initiative of this administration kasi ang dami yung mga council, no? Gusto natin itong mga council na ito makollapse hanggat maaari into one, especially, Mr. President, dito sa gusto nating tahakin na employment strategy. So this bill, Mr. President, seeks to synergize these various plans and roadmaps with the establishment of the Trabaho para sa Bayan Master Plan, which seeks to place employment as the center of economic social policies consistent with our commitment also with the ILO Convention. So hindi lang po synergizing, no, Mr. President, yung ating hangarin, kung hindi adherence natin dun sa ILO Convention number 122. Ito po yung 1964 pa, or the Employment Policy Convention, which the Philippines ratified in 1976. Since then, Ginoong Pangulo, wala pa rin tayong trabaho para sa bayan plan that shall govern and provide direction to all efforts pertaining to employment generation and recovery, address dynamic and changing labor issues, and promote and enabling environment for quality and decent work to prosper. Kasi yung nangyayari ngayon, dun sa ILO commitment natin, nagbibigay tayo, Ginoong Pangulo, distinguished colleague from Aurora, patsi-patsi ho, I have a list, parang mga 7 times lang tayong nagbigay noong nag-submit nung ating initiatives. Pero, for example, focusing on youth employment lang, focusing on MSMEs lang, etc., Mr. President. So it's not synergized. Wala ho tayong master plan. Unlike other countries that have submitted and who gave their commitment doon sa ILO Convention number 122. So again, Mr. President, despite the fact na nagsasubmit tayo, laging every 6 years nagbabago din po ito. As to this particular measure, meron tayo ngayon, Ginoong Pangulong, ginagawa na holistic approach na kung saan ito na talaga yung master plan natin. Yung lahat ng policy natin with regard to employment generation, job creation, dito na po manggagaling. And meron pong isang council na nakatalaga para tignan ito.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the very, very comprehensive answer. And it's answered a lot of my subsequent questions also. And I've also learned a few things along the way. Thank you, distinguished majority leader, distinguished sponsor, Mr. President. Well, you mentioned other countries. I'm just curious if what is the practice in other countries? Well, there's very low unemployment in Southeast Asia, so they must be doing something right. Do they have a legislated employment plan or policy, and what is the time horizon, if so, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, that's a very good one, and that's the main reason why you made mention, Mr. President, during LEDAC when we discussed this in front of the President, no less than the Secretary of the Department of Labor and Employment, the other government agencies, heads of agencies of the government, were saying we really need this, Mr. President, because insofar as the master plan, employment master plan is concerned, tayo na lang ho halos yung wala na nag-commit doon sa ILO. Doon po sa katanungan na ilang bansa yung mga nagkaroon na ng legislated national employment plans or policies, meron pong 75 countries, Mr. President, that have a national employment policy or plan. 130 countries have a national youth employment strategy, Mr. President. Asia-Pacific countries such as Cambodia, China, Fiji, South Korea, Mongolia, Nepal, Samoa, Sri Lanka, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam have national employment policies or plans, Mr. President. And the following employment policies have been indicated for the Philippines. Yung binabanggit ko po kanina, now I have a copy now, yung sinasubmit po natin, no? Insofar as the Philippines is concerned, nakapitong beses na ho tayo nakapag-submit. Una, yung Philippine Labor and Employment Plan. Pero hanggang 2016 lang po yon. Pangalawa, nag-submit din po tayo yung NERS, National Employment Recovery Strategy. Alam na alam ni Senator Angara ito. Through the Executive Order number 140, inadopt po natin yung Employment Recovery Strategy ng NERS, reinforcing job-generating programs. Kasama na rin po dito yung Job Summit Proceedings, yung Task Group on Economic Recovery and National Employment Recovery Strategy Task Force, April to May 2022. Pangatlo, nasubmit din natin, Philippine Youth Development Plan. This covers 2017 to 2022. Yung pang-apat, National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan, NTESDP, 2018 to 2022. Yung panlima, yung Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Development Plan, hanggang 2022 lang din po, started 2017. Philippine Development Plan, 2017 to 2022, and Career Guidance Advocacy Plan o yung SIGAP Plan, 2018 to 2022. Wala pa ho tayong nasubmit na master plan na ini-expect po para ho sa atin. Dito po sa ating panukalang batas, Ginoong Pangulo, sa Section 2, in Declaration of Policies, makita po natin ito, letter B, nakalagay po dito, to promote the employability, competitiveness, wellness, and productivity of workers through efficient, effective, and timely delivery of industry-relevant skills training and enhancement programs, integration pathways, active labor market activities, and other services to allow workers to gain access to and maximize opportunities in the labor market. Ginoong Pangulo, kung titingnan po natin yung mga skills training program being offered by various government agencies, pakita lang po, dahil alam ko kayo bilang chairperson ng Committee on Finance, tinitingnan nyo ho yung mga budget, no? Kung mangyayari po itong batas na ito, yung mga council na pare-pareho po yung ginagawa at binabudgetan pa natin, imagine ho yung matitipid natin, Ginoong Pangulo, kung makukollapse po ito into one. For example, right now, there are about at least 7 councils that we have identified. Ito lang ho yung mga nahingan natin ng dokumento na mag-submit sa committee. Hindi pa ho natin nasisiguro na ito lang yung existing. So you can just imagine, Mr. President, yung magagawa natin kung maisa sa katuparan ito pong mga ginagawa po natin. So again, Mr. President, no, sa skills training alone, meron ho yung TESDA, tulong trabaho skills scholarship programs, 1 billion already. Yung TESDA, meron ding training for work scholarship, 3.85 billion. Yung pong TESDA, may special training for employment program, 2.78 billion. Ang DepEd, merong in-service training ng kanilang, ito po yung intervention for public school teachers. That's 777.53 million, Mr. President. At marami pa hong iba, no? Sa DOLE, meron pong DILP, meron pong TUPAD, merong Job Start. Imagine, Mr. President, kung isi-synergize natin lahat ito. Ang DOST, meron pong CEST. Meron pa ho yung GIP, yung DOLE. Meron pong DTI, may Mentor Me Project. Merong Negosyo Center. Merong Linking Smallholder Farmers Markets o Links Farm. Yung pong DAR, merong Farm Business School. DICT, may Expanded Tech for Ed Project. And I can go on and on, Mr. President. Napakadami po. Ang point ko lang, Mr. President, training na nga lang yung Department of Agriculture, merong ATI, may Agricultural Training Institute. Meron din po yung TESDA. Nagbibigay din po yung DOST. And it leads to employment. It leads to something that we wanted, yung concrete product, Mr. President. Pag ang GDP tumataas, masayang-masaya tayong lahat, pinag-uusapan natin, oy, tumaas yung GDP natin, etc. Pero bakit hindi nararamdaman ng ating mga kababayan? Baka ho kasi nagkakaroon ng maling pananaw na pagtaas ng GDP, baka numero lang po, pero hindi, wala pa rin yung trabaho. Nung minsan po, chinek natin yung pagbaba na ang unemployment rate, pero bumaba din po yung workforce, Mr. President. So ibig sabihin, ano ho ba? Maaari palang pumunta sa ibang bansa yung mga nagtatrabaho, or maaari po yung mga dating naghahanap ng trabaho, ayaw na maghanap ng trabaho. Sa ganitong paraan, Ginoong Pangulo, mas magiging klaro at malinaw yung ating estratehiya upang tignan gaano ba ka-effective ang ginagawang mga programa ng pamahalaan para tukuyin ang unemployment, underemployment, ang paggawa at paglikha ng trabaho. Salamat po.
Well, thank you again for a very comprehensive answer, distinguished gentleman from Bulacan, our distinguished majority leader, the former chair, actually, of the Committee on Labor, as well as the former Director General of the TESDA. So yeah, it's clear that we need to really reap the benefits of these various programs. They will all fall under the ambit of this nurse or the NERS, Your Honor.
It's actually, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, bigger than nurse because this will involve, Mr. President, the economic managers of the government to see to it, Mr. President, that we are not only taking care of the current situation right now, but also looking beyond, Mr. President. Our trainings, our curriculums, in line with what we are doing also. The gentleman is also one of the commissioners of Education Commission to find out if we are actually preparing our workforce in this intricate requirement, job requirement of the different industries. We have been talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and some other countries are already talking about 5IR, Mr. President. We just came from Singapore. I know the gentleman also went to Singapore. I actually had the chance to see Ella, the robot barista, Mr. President, na kung saan can create 200 cups of coffee in an hour, Mr. President. So these are the things that we wanted to look into and make sure that our workforce ready po at tayo po ay may ginagawa para siguruhin na tuloy-tuloy yung paggawa at paglikha ng trabaho. Because again, Mr. President, let me also emphasize, every year we have about 1.5 million workforce adding to our workforce, Mr. President, who yung mga graduate ng kolehiyo, maging techbook, nagiging part ng ating workforce. At kung wala ho tayong maayos na sistema o programa para siguruhin na laging lumalago yung oportunidad para magkaroon ng trabaho at hanap buhay ang ating mga kababayan, mas malaki yung problema ang ating kakaharapin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one or two last questions, Mr. President. I'm just looking through the bill, and I note there's the creation of a trabaho para sa Bayan Interagency Council, the need to create plans with a multi-year horizon, which is most commendable, 3 years, 6 year, 10-year development timeline. I'm just curious, Mr. President, dear sponsor, if given the rapid rate of change, economic developments, given that many of the biggest employers now did not even exist maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, is there a mechanism to amend these various plans along the way as conditions change, Your Honor?
Definitely, Mr. President. And that's why it is important to synergize the efforts of the different agencies of the government. Kasi kalat-kalat po, Mr. President. Pag titignan nyo, alos pare-pareho na po yung ginagawa nila at wala na hong kumukumpas. Parang kanya-kanya na lang na turfing, no, Mr. President. We need to synergize also our policies, Mr. President, yung mga programs natin, activities, and the projects. At tatamaan po dito yung mga kasalukuyang kinakaharap ng ating workforce, yung pong mga even the emerging industries, Mr. President, which is very important, Mr. President, so that we'll be able to optimize employment generation and recovery. As mentioned a while ago, Mr. President, no particular agency of the government would say, I am in charge or we are in charge of employment generation, of creating jobs, Mr. President. And with this measure, Mr. President, we'll be able to ensure also that there is a sound mobilization and dispersal of employment resources to identify key employment generations per region, per LGU, and in a maximized industries, including the provision of technical assistance, Mr. President. Kasi gusto natin, balang araw, Mr. President, kung ipoproject natin, makaka-create tayo, kagaya po nung nurse. Nung nakaraang taon, pinroject nila na kaya nating magkalikha ng 2 milyong trabaho. In fact, we were close, 1.8 million yung nakuha natin na listahan. No? And it's good to note, Mr. President, that during that time, we were very active in asking the heads of the government, DTI, DOLE, etc., i-pinpoint na natin, for example, in Region 1 o in Region 10, from where our minority leader comes from, ilang trabaho yung malilikha natin dyan? And anong particular job yung pwede nating makreate? Saan galing industry? Para nang sa ganoon, Mr. President, napiprepare din ho natin sa budget, makikita ho natin. Kasi for example, yung data po of employed persons, I hope we have the data here, yung employed persons natin by major industry from 2017 to 2020, papakita ko lang po, Ginoong Pangulo, it shows the concentration of employment in service industries. Kung pwede yung pakita natin. Naka-focus po dun sa service industries. Pag tinignan po natin yung agriculture and industry, for example, manufacturing, construction, etc., consistently lags behind, Mr. President. Samantalang pag tinitingnan natin lagi yung report na pinapakita sa atin as to room for improvement, ang laki-laki ho nung sa agriculture, pero pag tinignan nyo po yung employed persons in agriculture, pababaho ng pababaho yan, from 10.26 in 2017, 9.75 million na lang in 2020. Importante po na ma-address natin yung gaps at the supply side by identifying effective interventions on unemployment and yung job skills mismatch. Alam na alam po ni Senator Angaria, I'm sure, such as income support and provision of investment incentives to employers and private sector organizations that engage the unemployed and youth for training, technology, knowledge and skills transfer, upskilling, and enterprise-based training. Another example that I'd like to raise, Mr. President, yung data po mula sa Philippine Statistics Authority, it shows that most of the unemployed persons are male and young workers under 15 to 24 years old. Pakita lang po sana natin yung sa unemployed. Kita po natin dyan, yung effective interventions targeting such groups should be ramped up. So yan po yung tinitingnan natin, Ginoong Pangulo, kasi nakikita po natin, madali ho, kung mayroon po tayong council na nangangalaga at nakatutok sa paggawa at paglikha ng trabaho, madali po nating mahuhugot itong mga impormasyon na ito para matutukan natin at mabigyan ng pansin maging sa ating napakahalagang ginagampanan na tungkulin dito sa Senado sa pagpasa ng national budget. Another, Mr. President, last but not the least po na gusto kong i-share na data, gusto nating i-address yung seasonality of employment and unemployment by ensuring active employment interventions. Tingnan niyo po itong data na to, Ginoong Pangulo. Tuwing August, September, October, November, December, mas mataas po yung employment. Mas mababa yung unemployment rate natin. Bakit? Kasi ito na, papunta na ho tayo sa Christmas, hindi ho ba? Pagdating ho ng January, February, ayan ho, babalik na naman po yan. So kung titingnan po natin yung data, mula po siguro, even if you compare it the last 5-10 years, ganyan po lagi, Ginoong Pangulo, taas baba, taas baba. Buti na lang ho, hindi umiikot-ikot, taas baba lang. At makikita po natin, Ginoong Pangulo, decreasing yung unemployment rate tuwing magpapasko. Pero bakit parang wala pa rin ho tayong intervention na ginagawa? So, with this measure, ma-address din po natin, Ginoong Pangulo, hindi lang yung unemployment, pati yung underemployment, which reflects the quality of jobs, employment, the economy is creating. Kasi baka mamaya, paulit-ulit na lang. For example, Mr. President, favorite ko example yung mga TESDA training programs. Sa isang baryo, kung ang training mo laging masahista or pagputol ng buhok, Mr. President, baka ho yung buong baryo puro masahista na tsaka manggugupit, Mr. President. Wala na tayong napoproduce na iba pang trade discipline. With this, Mr. President, we'll be able to figure it out because of the council. Sila na yung nakatutok and ma-harmonize pa po nila, ma-maximize pa nila yung contribution ng national government doon sa locality. Alam ko, isa pa, Mr. President, very close sa puso ng ating distinguished colleague from the province of Aurora, yung Magna Carta for workers in informal economy. Dahil bill niya din po ito, Mr. President. Again, no, pagka doon sa isang lugar, may mga kariton, may padjak, tinataboy po sila pero sila po yung nagbibigay ng employment eh. So bakit hindi natin gawan ng maayos konkretong programa na dapat hindi sila tinataboy dahil sila ay parte ng ating ekonomiya, nakakapagbigay sila ng trabaho. Itong mga co-ops natin, itong mga micro and small enterprises. And last but not the least, yung pinakita natin kanina, kasi ang baba yung youth participation in the economy, kailangan matignan din po natin iyon. At with this particular measure, yung mga glaring figures na yon, monitor po kaagad natin dahil may framework na tayo na tinitignan. May mga mechanisms in place to find out where we should put more efforts and more funding, Mr. President. At dun naman sa mga nabibigyan ng pondo na hindi nakaka-deliver, makikita rin ho natin, mas madali natin makita at mas madali natin mailagay doon sa mga efficient government agencies.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Again, as I said at the outset, this is a friendly interpellation. I was supportive from the outset, and I'm even more convinced now of how imperative it is to have this measure, how crucial it will be, and how valuable it will be in the lives of our countrymen. And I commend our majority leader, who is not short of tasks and work to do, and his team for not abandoning one of their original advocacies and our loves, which is creating jobs. I remember from his days at TESDA to his days as chair of the Labor Committee, and even during his sponsorship of measures like the security of tenure, the Department of Migrant Workers, and during our budget hearings when he always inquires as to how many employees, what is the quality of employment or the length of employment, etc. So talagang nandun po yung malasakit ng ating kasamahan, and I commend him for that, and I wish him all the best, and he has my full support in this endeavor. Thank you, distinguished colleague. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate the concern and passion also of our dear colleague, our chairperson of the Committee on Finance. I'm sure he would appreciate this more, Mr. President, if we will be able to pass this measure and it becomes a law. It will help us very much in deliberation of our national budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
I
Thank you
see
very much.
Senator Robin Hood Padilla raising his hand. Senator Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Gusto ko lamang pong sundan yung sinabi ng ating mahal na majority floor leader. Sapagkat nung ako po ay kagagaling ko lamang po sa Israel at marami po akong nakilala at nakasama na mga estudyante na mga Pilipino na nag-aaral ng agrikultura sa Israel. At sila po ay nagsasanay doon hanggang 11 buwan. Ang isa lamang po nilang reklamo sa atin ay yung sinabi po ng ating pinunong mayorya na pagdating nila dito, walang trabaho. At yung kanila pong napag-aaralan doon ay hindi po nila ma-apply dito sapagkat huling-huli na po tayo sa technology. Yung kanila pong technology doon, na sabi nga po ng ating pinunong mayorya, sa Singapore, artificial intelligence na. Pero dito sa atin, ewan ko kung anong nasaan ka po tayo. Ano? Pero ang gusto ko lamang pong ipunto, sana, kung meron po tayo mga programa sa pag-aaral, ganun din po sana pagdating sa technology natin. Kailangan po natin yun. Kasi kung sa pag-aaral po, ang pinakamagagaling na sa lahat, sasabihin ko na po talaga, ang Pilipino talaga ang pinakamagaling. Sa Israel, wala pong sinasabi yung mga Israeli kung hindi ang pinakamagaling nilang empleyado ay Pilipino. Napakasipag, napakabilis ng isip. Yun nga lang, pagdating po dito sa atin, hindi natin mabigyan ng trabaho. Ang nangyayari, nag-a-abroad sila. nagpupunta po sila sa ibang lugar, hindi po natin napapakinabangan. Kaya po sana, bilang suporta sa ating pinunong mayorya, siguro po magkaroon din tayo ng programa para makahabol tayo sa technology. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to spread into the records, Mr. President, that we appreciate the concerns shared to us by our dear colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. It would be very important, Mr. President, to note that there are so many OFWs around the globe, and they are very much competent, uh, well-versed with regard to as far as the technology is concerned, Mr. President. But tama ho si Senator Padilla, pagdating ho dito, una, wala silang opportunity. Pangalawa, wala din ho yung technology. Kaya importante po itong batas na ito sapagkat makikita po dito kung ano yung mga po pwede natin gawin. For instance, and I'll be very specific, yung transfer of technology, Mr. President, na po pwedeng ma-acquire ng ating kapwa Pilipino, na po pwedeng madala ho dito. Yung pagbibigay ng more incentives sa ating mga investors na pumupunta rito sa Pilipinas, dala ang kanilang teknolohiya, meron hong provision na bibigyan ka namin ng incentive kung ikaw ay makapagbibigay o may ita-transfer din yung technology na dala-dala nila dito sa ating bansa. So ilan po ito sa napakahalagang sangkap na nais nating isama sa panukalang batas na ito at masiguro na itong master plan na framework na ating binabalangkas ngayon ay mako-cover po niya, Ginoong Pangulo, yung mga iba't ibang bagay na nangyayari, mga teknolohiya, yung latest technology na ina-apply ng iba't ibang bansa, maging yung mga emerging technologies, Mr. President, which I believe is very important as well. So again, thank you, Mr. President. With that, Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2035. So move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Okay daw sa'yo.
May I move for a minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session suspended.
President, I move for additional I move that we take additional reference of business. So move, Mr. President.
Sure. Secretary, if there's no objection, please proceed.
Second additional reference of business resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution 587 commending and congratulating Marlon Tapales for winning the WBO and IBF World Super Bantamweight title, Senator Go.
Refer to Committee on Rules.
588, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation of the emerging use of artificial intelligence in different sectors and or industry, and for the establishment of a framework related to the adoption, promotion, development, and fair use in the Philippines, Senator Villar M.
The Committee on Science and Technology.
589, directing the appropriate committee to conduct an inquiry on the continued proliferation of bank-related scams and fraud, Senator Villar M.
Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies.
590, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation to develop and strengthen the existing heat index monitoring for purposes of creating an effective and efficient alert system, similar to alert system used during other calamities, Senator Villar M.
Before I refer that, I would just like to say that I'm in full support of that measure. We should have an efficient and effective heat alert system in this country. Sobrang init. Maraming namamatay na dahil heat stroke, sa heat stroke. So referred to the Committees on Science and Technology, Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change.
591, directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry into the impact and effects of artificial intelligence on job displacement in the business process outsourcing and original equipment manufacturer sector, Senator Marcos.
Committees on Science and Technology, Labor and Employment.
592, directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry into the alleged massive fraudulent registration of voters for the 2023 barangay and SK elections, Senator Marcos.
Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation.
593, directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry into the use and provision of non-lethal weapons for law enforcement officers in the Philippines with the end in view to improve the policies and practices of the PNP in the use of non-lethal force, ensuring that the use of force is proportionate to the threat presented and that the fundamental rights of individuals are protected, Senator Tulfo.
Committees on Public Order and Dangers, Drugs, Justice, and Human Rights.
595, urging the appropriate Senate committees to conduct an inquiry on the alleged human trafficking and cyber fraud operations of the Clark Sun Valley Hub Corporation inside the Clark Freeport Zone with the end in view of eliminating human trafficking and cyber fraud industries in the country, Senator Poe.
Committee on Women and Children, Family Relations. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move to transfer the committee referral of the following bills renaming the Agham Road and the BIR Road, the Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago Avenue, from the Committee on Rules to the Committee on Public Works, Senate Bill number 2069 and Senate Bill number 1888. I so move, Mr. President.
There have been no objection. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. This juncture, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, May 10, 2023. So move, Mr. President.
There have been no objection to the motion, Majority Floor Leader. Session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, May 10, 2023. Have a good evening, everyone. Stay safe.